Hi, boys and girls. It's time for art class. My name is Miss Melissa. Guess what we are going to be learning about today? Tessellations. Here are two examples of tessellations. I know you may be thinking, well, what is a tessellation? It usually occurs only if there is an array. Can you believe that? I know you know what a rectangular array is. It has many rows and columns, and we have been making art with arrays for some time now. I'm super excited to show you how to create a very cool tessellation just like this, inspired by this famous artist, M.C. Escher. So follow me along to get our supplies. You will need one white sheet of paper, also a black sheet of paper. So one white sheet and one black sheet of paper. You will also need maybe a couple of pencils and an eraser, a pair of scissors, and a glue stick or a bottle of glue. And lastly, you will also need your box of markers. Here is a picture of M.C. Escher. Now this is a picture of him when he was in his elderly years. He lived to be about 75 years old. He grew up in a country called the Netherlands. Did you know that he was the youngest of 5 boys? He had a bunch of brothers. He was a Dutch printmaker. A printmaker is a type of artist that makes several copies with their artwork. He was such a famous artist that he had many books, magazines, even calendars printed all over the world with his artwork. But one of the most famous things he's known for is creating something called tessellations. A tessellation, as you could see, here's the word, it's a bunch of tiles covering an area that has no gaps and no overlaps. I'll explain this. Tiles are usually geometric shapes, so let me show you. Here is an example of a tessellation that I created. If you notice, there are plenty of, what shape are these tiles that I'm drawing my finger around? Rectangles. This whole paper has rectangular shaped tiles, kind of like a grid. Now, inside of each tile, did you know that I used a triangular shape to make my tessellation? Look, here's my black shape of a triangle. All I did was trace. Geometric shapes can create copies or patterns. These patterns fill up an array, where rows and columns are very important because of space. So let's look at it again. Do you see how the geometric shape of my triangle made more triangles, and even, look at that, 2 big triangles? So those are my patterns. Now, do you see a color pattern here? Exactly. I have a color pattern of pink and green, the only 2 colors that I used in this tessellation. And did you notice all of my rows and columns? Let's count them. Ready? Here we have 1 row, This would be 2, 3, and 4. Now let's count the number of columns. 1, 2, and 3. I have 3 columns and 4 rows. Pretty neat, huh? Do you know the most important thing, though? Is space. Anytime we create a tessellation, the space is important, and I'm going to show you why. Do you see this triangle right here? I'll tell you what, let me put it here. Maybe you could see it better here. There's no gaps in between, and they don't overlap. Here is an example of one of M.C. Escher's tessellations. Let's look at this picture and check to see if he did his tessellation correctly. Does this white lizard go over the purple? Does the purple one go over the green? Does the green go over the purple? No, you see? The leg is not going, it's not overlapping over the purple one's back. There's no empty spaces in between each part of the lizard. Now, do you notice a pattern of color here? Very good. He has what? He used purple, green, and white. Now, do you see geometric shapes like the one that I made? No, that's the only difference. M.C. Escher used organic shapes, shapes with animals. We are going to use geometric shapes today. You can choose between a rectangular shape to make your pattern with, or you can choose between a triangular shape to make your pattern with. Let's take a look at this word problem. It says, create a grid design to develop spatial structuring. Basically, we're going to create a tessellation. By the way, boys and girls, you might hear some music playing in the background throughout this video, okay? Let's look at the first step. Fold paper to make rectangular shaped tiles. We're going to make a grid. Then the beginning of the second part says cut off a column. Let's go ahead and do that together. What I want you to do is, you can put your black paper aside. We're going to use that later, right at the end. Right now, what you need is your white sheet of paper. The first thing we're going to do is make a grid. We're going to make our very own grid by folding the paper. In your class, you use a lot of square tiles. Well, in this art class, we're going to use rectangular shaped tiles. So follow me. First thing I want you to do is fold your paper in half, just like that. Kind of looks like the shape of a book. You're going to make sure the corners and the sides touch, and when they do, you can make a crease. Once you get that crease, now we are going to open up our paper and cut it in half. Okay? Now, whenever you're cutting, keep in mind you want your thumb to go in the small hole and your fingers to go in the big hole. Open the scissors wide and you put the paper way in the back of the scissors mouth. Just a little reminder. And then you just open and close, just like that. When you're finished cutting your paper in half, you're going to take one piece of it and put it aside. We do not need 1/2 of the sheet. So then you'll have the other half. What I want you to do is turn it till it goes side to side. Now we're going to start folding the paper. So copy off of me. Ready? I want you to fold it into a hot dog shape, just like this. You want to make sure the corners and the sides touch. When they do, make a crease. And boys and girls, you know, throughout this whole class, just do your best. We are not going to ever get it perfect, right? I don't expect you to. Just do your best. It's going to come out just fine. Now that you folded it into a hot dog shape, we're going to do it again. So you need to use the muscles in your fingers. Maybe put your fingers in the middle and lift the paper up to meet the top. The sides and the corners should touch and make a crease. It's like a mini hot dog, huh? Or a mini wrap or something. I love wraps. Okay, so let's open it and see what we get. Remember, we just folded it into two hot dog shapes, right? A big one and a small one. You should see 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. Very good. Now what we're going to do is fold it the other way. You know how we just folded it into a hot dog? Okay. Well, now we're going to fold it into a book. So you're copying off of me. Okay? So you're taking this paper, fold it into a book, and then we're going to, watch, fold it again. Okay? You're folding it in the same direction. And then when you open it up, you will get something like this, where you can actually see all of these little rectangles. We just made columns. Let's count them together. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Very good. Now, guess what I want you to do? I want you to cut off one of the columns. We are going to be using it. So take your scissors, watch me. Do you see how you can see these straight lines? We have 3 of them, right? We're going to cut on one of the straight lines, just like this. You're going to cut one of your columns off. Okay, we're going to use this in a second. And then you should end up with something that looks like this. Let's finish making our grid so we could see it better. So what I want you to do is take your pencil and trace each line that makes a crease. And as you can see, I'm tracing the line that creates the rows. Okay? So I have 1, 2, 3 straight lines that make a row. And now I'm going to trace the 1 and 2 straight lines that make my column. Can you see that? Good. So make sure you trace all of your lines so you can see your rectangular shaped tiles. Let's look at the second part. It says, then cut one of your rectangular tiles in half to create a shape. Okay, let's do that together. So if I take one of my rectangular shaped tiles and cut them in half, let's see what we would get. Boys and girls, take that column that you had and just cut off one of your tiles. We don't need this one, so we can put it aside. All you need is one rectangular tile, and the directions said to cut it in half. Let me show you how to make a small rectangle shape. You would basically have to fold it in half like a mini hot dog and cut it out. You only need one shape. Now, you have another option. You can make a triangle shape if you wanted to. So, if you prefer a triangle, what you're going to do is cut a diagonal line from one corner of the rectangle to the other. So watch. I'm going to open wide and make a big chomp, just like that. So what I need you to do is pick one. You should have a small rectangle shape to make your tessellation with, or you should have a small triangle shape. You cannot have both. Please pick one. All right, let's look at step 3. After we made our grid and our shape, now we can, what does it say? Create a pattern with this shape. So let me show you how to do that. Boys and girls, if you decide to use a rectangle shape to make your tessellation, you are going to put your rectangle inside each large tile, and you're going to trace it. Okay, so watch what I'm doing. Let's pretend that you're tracing this rectangle in every tile. These are my tiles. Here is the rectangle that you chose. Now, let me show you what it looks like if you do that. Take a look. Wow. Look at how many little rectangles you're going to have. Let's take a look at that triangle one together. Remember, we cut the triangle in half for those of you who chose this shape. All you have to do is place it and trace it in each rectangle tile. You see that? You would trace it. Now, you don't have to do it exactly. I mean, it's kind of hard to trace your pencil against a piece of paper, right? So you can just do the best you can. And keep in mind, you can flip sides. You make your own design. Let me show you what it'll look like. Take a look. This is what it would look like if you traced this triangle shape in every tile. Okay, so what I want you to do is go ahead and do that right now. You are going to pick whichever shape you chose and start tracing. We can do it together. You can have them all going the same direction, or you can flip your triangle to make different designs. The rectangle, you're pretty much going to get the same pattern because it only fits, going side to side. Let's see. I think I'm going to make a different pattern. Yeah, you can flip your triangle in different directions to create different patterns of shapes. You see? It looks like I have two big triangles here. So boys and girls, you get to be really creative with the design that you choose. The triangle shape design, usually you get more options with that. The rectangle design, not as much. Make sure to trace the triangle in all of your tiles. Let's see what happens. All right, boys and girls, so finish up tracing your shape to make your designs, and then we'll get to the last part. Step 4, color in your design with 2 different colored markers. Let me show you what your picture may look like. Here is an example of my rectangular shaped design. Notice, what 2 colors do I have? Blue and orange. We can count the patterns in rows. Let's do it. Blue, orange, blue. And I'm going down to the next one. Orange, blue, orange, blue, orange, blue, orange. So every space I start a new color, right? That could be one way. What if you chose another design? Look at this. I chose blue, orange, blue, orange, blue, orange, and then when I did 2 blues, I did 2 oranges, 2 blues, and I went back to 1. Orange, blue, orange, 2 blues, 2 oranges, 2 blues, and then back to 1. 1 orange, 1 blue, 1 orange. Do you see that? Boy, you can get really creative with your color patterns. Now let me show you some possibilities for using the triangle shape to make a pattern. Here is one example where I just colored all of my top triangles pink. All of my top triangles came out pink, and then all the bottom ones came out green. Now, I used pink and green. Do you have to use pink and green? No. You can use whatever 2 colors you want. Let me show you another possibility. Take a look at this one. I made a different color pattern here. Let's look at the columns. Notice all the ones on this column, my top triangle was what? Green. Very good. Now, let's look at the second column. What color were my top triangles? Pink. Very good. Now, let's look at the third column. What color were my top triangles? Green. So do you see how switching the place that you color can make your pattern different? You notice? What shape do you see now? Exactly. Now I see that the triangles created diamonds. I have pink diamonds and green diamonds. I bet you are ready to create your tessellation with color. Okay, boys and girls, so go ahead and pick your 2 colors and get started. Now keep in mind, I have triangles, you may have rectangles, and even if you have a triangle, I'm sure your design could be totally different. I'm going to choose red and purple. Maybe you want to choose blue and yellow. Pick 2 colored markers and get started. Now, what I'm going to do is color it with you, but I know we're going to have to stop soon because of time, so I'll give you a sneak preview of what it'll look like when I'm all done. And I bet everyone is going to have a different design. Some of you use rectangles, some of you used triangles. Depending on how you placed your shape, if you have triangles, will give you even a more interesting pattern. And don't forget about color, right? Color is very important in creating your pattern. I started making my patterns in the corners, so that's why I'm coloring the corners of mine first. Okay, boys and girls, so here is what my artwork will look like when I'm finished. Pretty neat, huh? Do you see how I just kept using purple and red to create a pattern? So everyone's tessellation could be totally different. What I want you to do right now before we go is take your paper and I want you to turn it over so we could add some glue. If you have a glue stick, you can just draw on the outside and stick it to your black paper. I ran out of glue in my glue stick, so I'm just going to use a glue bottle and put some tiny dots in the corner. You can always go back and finish coloring your picture later in class or at home. But for right now, we're going to stop and glue your sheet to your black paper. You can hold it down for a few seconds. I'm going to count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, I hope you enjoy finishing coloring your tessellation. I'm so glad you joined me today. I had a lot of fun designing our tessellation together. Do you remember the name of the famous artist who created many tessellations in his artwork? M.C. Escher. I know, it's not the easiest name to remember, right? Well, besides line, shape, and color patterns, do you remember the most important thing that we should pay attention to when creating our tessellation design? I'll give you a hint. It's a new art vocabulary word, and it starts with letter S. If you were thinking space, very good. The spaces in between each tile is important when you're drawing shapes inside. Remember, to make a tessellation, you don't want to leave any gaps, any empty space, and you don't want the shapes to overlap, to go over each other. You want them to line up just right. So space is very important. As you go through the rest of your week, I hope you make another tessellation on your own. Maybe you can use different shapes like circles, ovals, squares, even heart and star shapes. I'm sure you will do a great job with those shapes. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you next time.